Now what's really interesting is that when you exercise, you are mimicking or you are engaging in a stress response. And that's kind of the irony of it. But so you get the heart rate up, the blood pressure. These are all the things that as your body gets ready to run or fight, that are part of the fight or flight response that are triggered by the adrenaline, which you do release when you exercise. But unlike the stress response in a non-exercise setting, it's the rebound from exercise that really gives you the value. It gives you that drop back down. Chalk. Oh, thanks. Right. That drop back down that the parasympathetic response gives you back to homeostasis that you really need, and that's the wonderful benefit. And maybe you've heard about the runner's high and the afterglow, the exercise afterglow, right? That's because the parasympathetic response brings you back down to homeostasis, and then you get what are called endogenous opioids, right, that are released, and they are basically your body's painkillers. Who needs drugs? You know, that's part of why a lot of people do exercise, for that after effect, for that feel good that they get afterwards. So, and it actually lowers your heart rate from before you started the exercise. So you actually, it's commonly the case that people will start their exercise when they're already at a somewhat stressed out level anyway. So you get a much better rebound back to homeostasis after the exercise than if you hadn't done it, right? Right? And so you actually, people who regularly engage in exercise, and of course, I'm not talking about the high endurance athletes, they're outrageous. Their heart rates are like 45 and 50. I mean, they're damn near pacemaker in their heart rates. That's extreme. But a person in fairly fit, in good shape, can actually expect 10, 20 point lower resting heart rate than a person who doesn't engage in regular exercise, and a lower respiration rate because their lung capacity is increased, so you don't need to breathe as often. It's part of it. So you can expect, you know, where you might say a resting heart rate of 70 to 80, and a respiration of what is it, about 12 to 16 for resting. For a non-fit person, you can actually see in a fit person 50 to 70 for resting heart rate, and about 8 to 12 for a fit person. And I know I'm staving off a lot of problems because I'm doing that even though I can't get my weight down right now. So that's another thing too, is that you can actually stave off a lot of health problems with regular exercise too, because you're giving your body that chance to get that parasympathetic rebound. Okay? So, right. Also, when you exercise, you increase the blood flow and therefore the oxygen flow to the brain. So some people will tell you it was when they were going on their run, when they were at the gym, that they had this spark of creativity, or something occurred to them that they hadn't remembered, and that's not at all uncommon. Right? Now, they talk about different kinds of exercise. You guys know all about that. Anaerobic means no oxygen, and you have to do a certain amount of that, you know, the weightlifting to actually increase the capacity of your muscles. And then the aerobics exercise is supposed to do 20 to 30 minutes a day, and the anaerobic, they say there's different zones, but you can alternate, you know, every other day on the anaerobic. Or if you do it every day, you should alternate what part of the body you're focusing on, like upper body one day, lower body the next day, and then, you know, go back and forth. Because you have to give those muscles that you're forcing to work really hard time to recover. So, or at least that's the current thinking. And you'll notice that the thinking changes all the time, both in exercise and nutrition. So this is the current thinking as of this volume, this edition coming out last spring, I think, or last fall. So, and what's really interesting is you'd think something, you know, like swimming would get you a lot of calories burned, but it's actually the bicycling and the racquetball, so the running and stopping, that kind of interval exercise. And that is the current thinking right now, is that instead of doing a steady 20 to 30 minutes at the same level, you should actually do 3 to 5 minutes, let it go down, not to resting, but to a lower heart rate, then bring it back up again. They call that interval training. And their current thinking right now is that that's actually more optimal. It gives you better exercise, more calories burned. That's the current thinking. So, and And that may be part of the inline skating thing too, because you're doing some ups and then some downs, and the same thing with cycling, you're doing some ups and some downs. So, right. Okay. And since we are pretty clear on this, I'm not going to spend too much time, but there's a lot of long-term effects of regular exercise that are why you get the lowered stress response and why you get the improved immune function, right? And it has to do with a number of long-term sequelae, including the immediate, rebound effect, which we just talked about. But there's the long-term effects too: improved muscle tone, better oxygenation, decreased cholesterol, better bone intensity. They actually now, for women especially, are emphasizing that you need to do some kind of impact, even if it's low impact, 3 to 5 times a week. Walking even counts, because it keeps the bone density from decreasing as you get older. And they're now been able to follow enough people long enough to find that remember I showed you guys that the chromosome, the telomere that wears down with stress and with each replication, that you can slow that down with exercise, and that actually people who regularly exercise age more slowly and have, so it's not just for stress effects, it's also for better aging too, which is sort of interesting. Certainly another motivation for me. Okay. So let me talk about the different parts of fitness that isn't just about your cardio endurance, and I think most people who've taken a PE class know about this, so we don't need to spend a whole lot of time on this. And the different theories of conditioning. Frequency, intensity, and duration are kind of the important aspects of getting yourself fit or taking better care of yourself. So how many days per week, how hard you work, you have to get your heart rate up above a certain threshold or a certain minimum amount of time, and then how long. Right now they're saying you need to get your heart rate up good 20 to 30 points from your resting for a good 20 to 30 minutes. That's the current thinking for each time you exercise, which they say should be daily, but you should vary what kind of exercise it is, so that you shouldn't do the same aerobics class every single day. You shouldn't do the same elliptical trainer every single day, because then it begins to have repetitive motion injury issues on the same joints, things like that. Especially as you get older, you definitely find and so they've got all kinds of information in your book on how long and the intensity and all of that. One of the things I wanted to make sure I did talk about is that, and we briefly mentioned when we started talking at the beginning of the quarter about, hold on, let me go back. About things that you do that affect your sleep hygiene, because we talked about sleep hygiene earlier in the quarter, and they're finding that there's definitely a strong connection between physical exercise and insomnia. There is not, however, a definitive answer to when you should do it, because there seems to be enough individual difference in people's circadian rhythms and their eating patterns and everything else that it isn't always, optimal for you to exercise right before you go to bed. It works for some people, it doesn't work for others. So you're going to have to figure out your individual differences and your lifestyle and all those other things and how they're going to affect it. But there's clear evidence that, that regular exercise reduces the incidence of insomnia. So a lot of data out there. It isn't just necessarily right before you go to bed either. Although we do know that doing some stretching and deep breathing before you go to bed to clear your mind definitely has a direct connection to a better sleep. So, and technically yoga is a form, or stretching, that's technically a form of exercise as well. Okay, so I'm not going to mess with the workout stuff. You guys should know that by now. You can always go back and have a look at this. All right, we do know, besides the beta endorphin rush, those endogenous opioids I was talking about earlier, that we have some other benefits of, here, let me go back for a second, of the psychological, other psychological benefits, besides the immediate beta endorphin rush and the parasympathetic rebound. Right? We know that actually people with chronic pain do better if they continue to exercise or get a specially tailored for them exercise program, like through their